Oh my god, this looks so amazing. Isn't that amazing? It's coming down through the clouds. Wow. So I'm just sitting here watching one of our last sunsets in Bucharest. I've been really lucky to have this lovely little place with this view of the square and the sunset. I can't remember the last time we actually got to see the sunset. But I don't know if we've ever had a place where the sunset's right there outside the window. So we try to watch it every evening. I wanted to talk a little bit about something that is important to me, is how I live as a creative individual in this world. We live in a world, and anyone who is creative or sensitive knows this, that we live in a world that's very cold and very dead, right? It's very empty, hollow. People focused on their jobs or on making money or proving that they're worth something by having a bunch of stuff, big houses and cars and all that crap. And going through that cycle of being born, going to school, getting a good job, getting married, having kids, getting old, getting your pension, retiring and dying, same old, same old. So going against that trend and living by your own script, so to speak, is very difficult, and it's definitely not for everybody. But I'd say from my own experience over my life that I've always been this way. I've always been a very creative, visionary individual, and I've always been very stubborn in that I refuse to I've never had a job, for example. I've never worked for anybody in my life. I've never had a salary, and never had any just lived a very avant-garde, strange life. And from the beginning, from when I was a kid, I always just didn't do what I was told. I was a good kid growing up. I went to school, I graduated high school, but if I had known that high school is bullshit and all of that stuff is bullshit, I wouldn't have done it. I would have dropped out. I wouldn't have gone to college. I went to college for like a year or two. Went to college for a year for voice, and then dropped out and went to conservatory in New York City, which is how I met Thoth. But I wouldn't have done any of that either if I'd really understood that you don't have to do that in order to find your own way. And it's probably better not to do any schooling at all. I wish I'd been homeschooled. I wish my parents had given me that choice to be homeschooled and learn the things that I really wanted to learn as a kid, instead of just do what everybody else did. Remember, I was always begging my parents to take me out of school and let me go to, a school for arts and music, and they wanted me to. They were both musicians too, my parents, but they wanted me to go to school, and we lived in a pretty generic area of the world growing up. But I always was me. I always dressed up strangely and did my own thing. And I just didn't listen to anybody. I didn't let anything get me down. I had a choir teacher in high school named Kim Clark, who was extremely, just tried to beat me down any chance she got. She would belittle me, criticize me in front of the class, make fun of me, mock me. And I didn't let it get me down. I had dreams about ripping her face apart for years, you know, but I didn't let it destroy my dreams. And I would go into class dressed up like a clown, and she'd say, "What, is the circus coming to town?" And I'd say, "Yeah, we're gonna go to the Bonham and Bailey Circus tonight," you know. I wanted to be in Cirque du Soleil when I was 16. I even got to audition for Cirque du Soleil when I was 19, which is pretty cool. But I didn't know how to improvise, ironically enough. Now I can do all the things that Cirque du Soleil would want in a singer, but I have no desire or interest in being in Cirque du Soleil anymore, because I know that it's just like any other corporation, like Broadway, or, you know, it just works you until you get destroyed, and then it throws you out with the garbage, like everything else. And I want to, if I ever became recognized, I want to be recognized for what I do, not for what some organization does, which I realize now is highly unlikely. It's even more unlikely than getting into Cirque du Soleil or getting onto Broadway. So it's the percentage is minuscule that would happen. And I realize that I'm not ambitious in that kind of way. I don't have this desire to be, I used to have the very strong desire to be recognized, whatever that means, as a musician and as a singer and as an artist. I know my own value, and I know my own worth as a singer and as an artist, and etc. But I've grown up and learned that that's unlikely, and focusing all my energy on that is not what I really like doing. God, the sunset is so beautiful. I like being creative, so I've just survived by following my own feelings and my own my guts. You know, when I met Thoth, that's how it was. Everybody told me I was nuts being with him and being around him and pursuing him, and I was, but I just knew that it was the right thing. I knew that I absolutely didn't know that I'd be sitting here looking at the sunset and somewhere in Romania after having traveled to 3 different continents in a year. You know, I wouldn't have thought that my life would be the way it is now. Hi, son. But I've always followed my intuition about things, and that's, you really have to, and that following your intuition, following your heart, following your gut really goes against everything that modern society tells us that we should do, right? Modern society tells us that we need to be successful, we need to make a lot of money, we need to focus on material possessions and wealth, and gaining things. But I think I've always known that we're on this earth to learn and grow as creative beings, and follow what feels right to us. And most of the greatest creative people of all time, that's how they lived. They just pushed against the status quo. So I also have the belief that our life, even if we're never seen for what we are now while we're alive, it's possible maybe that it might happen when Thoth is dead, when I'm older, maybe, you know, him living for maybe he has another 15 years or so. I don't think that's enough time, but 50 years might be enough time for what we do to be seen by people. Maybe it won't happen in my lifetime. Maybe it'll happen long after I'm dead. And that's okay. And I focus on the things that, you know, on learning, on growing, on evolving as a creative individual, gaining skills in music and singing and drawing and being creative. And that's the most important. I'm here to evolve my soul and not to prove myself to anybody. And I think that's a distraction for people, is that they forget what they're here for. And I wouldn't say that I know better than anybody, because I definitely struggle in my own ways with, sometimes immensely struggle with feeling like I've failed, or that I'm a loser and that my life is worthless and I haven't made a mark or anything, or really made an impact. But for the most part, I'm able to be pretty centered in that I'm doing what I need to do to grow and learn as much as I can about myself and about my life and how to live the best way I can. And that's the most important thing to me, is to just try and live a good life that I can be proud of and share it as best I can, and try not to judge my process and try not to judge others. We're all human at the end of the day, and it's easy to judge. And because I've been judged so much in my life, I've been isolated and singled out and made to feel less than a lot in my life, that I know what that feels like to feel misunderstood and to feel isolated and cut off from people. So I try my best to be understanding, even, for example, when people are mean or rude online. I try to be, I'm not the kind of individual that lashes out at people often. I do that in public, like if people are trying to fuck with us, I'm very easily able to say, get the fuck out of my face, in that kind of protective way. But that's just a learned skill that I have from living the way we have lived, playing in public and being so exposed. But in general, I try to be understanding of people, even when they're not understanding of me. I definitely make mistakes, and I try to learn from my mistakes. But one of the things about being with Thoth is that I really respect him, and he respects me. And he was really one of the first people in my life, probably the first person in my life, that really showed me respect by listening to me and actually listening to what I had to say, and actually doing the things that I would say that I would like to do, or like the whole time we've been traveling for 15 years, basically every choice that's been made has been my choice. And he never blames me for when things don't work out, when things go wrong, which is his own practice. It's pretty amazing. But that's given me a huge amount of confidence, so that having somebody around me gives me confidence by just going wherever I want to go and doing the things I want to do, and just allowing me to learn from my mistakes, and not judging me and not blaming me, has really helped. And then just always being this rebellious being I've always known who I am inside. And I had a while in my life when I was young in which I was very egotistical about myself and thought I was the best in the world and that I deserved all sorts of shit. But now I've come to where I feel that confidence in myself, and I know who I am, but I don't feel the need for anybody else to really care, or know, or validate me, or validate what I do or what we do creatively. It's hard to come to that kind of space in life as a creative individual, because we live in a society that's so focused on you know, recognition and being recognized and being applauded and praised and loved and rewarded for your creative output. And the way that we live has very much been that hasn't happened and doesn't happen. And I'm not the kind of person who's going to go around trying to force people to be interested in us. The most I can do is talk on camera and have Thoth talk on camera about our experiences and sharing the day-to-day of our experiences and our different ways that we play in public and experiences we have, and doing my art. That's the most I can do. Those things feel good to me. So I'm learning how to just follow what feels good to me, and that's how I function.